Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2014 edition of the Economic Times Awards for Corporate Excellence. I'd now like to request Mr. Vineet Jain, Managing Director of the Times Group, to come up on stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Vineet Jain. May I now invite our special guests of the evening to please join us on stage. Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis. Union Minister of State, Commerce and Industry, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman. Minister of State with independent charge for power, coal and new and renewable energy, Mr. Piyush Goyal. Union Defence Minister, Mr. Manohar Parrikar. And the Union Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley. To make things not only ministerial, we'd like our four esteemed CEO guests who will be part of our roundtable to also come up on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please invite CEO of Flipkart, Sachin Bansal, CEO of Diageo, Ivan Menezes, Chairman of ITC Limited, YC Deveshwar, Chairman and Group CEO of Bharti Enterprises, Mr. Sunil Mittal. All of them to join our illustrious panel, ladies and gentlemen. I'd now like to invite Mr. Vineet Jain to deliver the welcome address.
Distinguished guests on the dais, winners of the ET Awards, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2014 edition of the ET Awards for Corporate Excellence. A lot has changed since I last spoke to you. What was once a political slogan, "Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar," is now a reality, and with a thumping majority. In the 6 months that he has been in office, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has raised spirits and wowed investors. The gloom of the last few years is now a distant memory. As you are aware, the government, with the Finance Minister leading from the front, has already introduced a number of reforms in the areas of coal mining, labor, and ease of doing business. But to quote the Prime Minister, "Ye dil mange more." Let me end by thanking all of you here tonight. ET Awards are what they are because you come out in full force to endorse this show of excellence. I thank you for making ET your preferred destination for breaking stories, analysis, and comment. We look forward to your support, encouragement, and feedback in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. Thank you very much for your welcome address. Truly words that matter and resonate very deeply with the ethos of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, no power evening should be without a roundtable discussion. What we bring to the table is thankfully not that rupees 1.86 lakh crore question, but the other more potent one, Acche din. Are we on track for the 8% growth? The discussion will be moderated by Bodhisattva Ganguly, Deputy Executive Editor of the Economic Times. Over to you, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, the panel discussion.
One of the strategies which the government has pursued is to focus on areas such as defense and railways and tourism, which has so far been left out of the ambit of reforms. So let me turn to Mr. Parrikar first, if I may. Mr. Parrikar, defense is one area where the government has already raised the FDI limit. And it seems to be a thrust area of the PM's Make in India campaign. And it's also an area in which almost every big corporate house, including I'm sure many in this audience, are getting to. So could you give us a sense of your priorities?
You chose to shoot me down first. I'll put it in one line. It's a huge potential for Indian industry and obviously for contributing to the industrial production.
Right.
Of course, there are definitely problems for last maybe decades we have not concentrated on this industry.
Right.
It is a disadvantage of obviously one customer, a customer where unless you are very sure you can't invest, I think all those aspects have been considered, and we are working on policies where Make in India becomes reality in this sector.
Right.
Now to thank Mr. Jaitley for getting me 80% of the work on the track, so I can do it, to complete it in next couple of months. All my files ultimately land on his table.
Mr. Jaitley, any response to that? Would you like to weigh in on the subject?
I think what Mr. Parrikar said, and the spirit of your question, I think we got our priority right as far as defense was concerned on day one. The priority was domestic production and preparedness. Now, you can't indefinitely have a system where you continue to be the largest importer in the world, and for almost monopoly items or rare items, huge prices are quoted.
Right.
And you don't make any effort in order to start this whole process of domestic production. Now, this is symptomatic of what ailed the previous government. Probably the Prime Minister favored raising the caps, but one minister, the then Defence Minister, vetoed it, and singularly the government couldn't do it. Now, in the very first 10 to 15 days of our government, we took a policy decision which within days in the budget it was announced. We raised the cap to 49%. The objective was capacity building.
Okay.
So, at 49, we've had a reasonably good approach, initial period. People are approaching Indian corporates for joint ventures. And the second priority is procurement. So, in the last 5 to 6 months, we've started this culture, a monthly meeting of the Defence Acquisition Council. And I think that process has been expedited.
Okay.
And I think this is extremely important from the point of view of defence preparedness. As far as allocation of resources is concerned, I think it gets top priority.
Okay.
And considering the area, that region of the world we live in, hopefully there is no future aggression. But if it is, it could be a dual aggression.
Right.
And therefore, you need far greater preparedness than you've had in the past. And I think that's what we are preparing ourselves for. That's the best defense that government, India has.
Okay. Moving on from defense, if I can just come to Piyush. Piyush, you're dealing with one of the most difficult problems to confront the government. So do you expect the coal ordinance to become law in the current session of Parliament?
The ordinance is a reality. It's an ordinance that came out in less days than the mess it sought to replace. We sorted out a 40-year story in less than 40 days. And I've yet to read one editorial which has been able to find flaw in that ordinance. It has addressed the woes of the power sector. Some of the captains of the power sector I see right here on the first row probably wanting to get reassured that we are on the job. And of course, a lot of bankers who are even more concerned about their debt profile with the power sector. But I can assure all of you in this room and the people watching through the ET Now that this is one sector which has been the priority of Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. It's a sector which he is committed to setting right, reaching out to the people with 24/7 power. And this ordinance is only the first step. A step which has sorted out the fuel issue for a large number of stalled and incomplete projects. It's an ordinance that in the long run seeks to bring back competition into the sector, both on the power side and the coal industry. So I see no problem in getting it resolved. The Lok Sabha will clear it in the next few days. The Rajya Sabha, from whatever sense I get from the people, is certainly understanding that the power sector needs to be resolved. And fortunately, the people of India, with their resounding verdicts of the last 2 or 3 years, have made sure that states also recognize that unless they deliver to the people, they don't vote back governments. So I'm quite sure the power is one sector, and I've got good support from all the states. I'm quite confident the coal ordinance is a reality waiting to happen in the next few days, and we'll be able to resolve the sectoral problems within the next 8 or 9 months in significant measure.
Thank you. If I could just come to the Chief Minister. Mumbai, this talk of Mumbai being a financial center, it is ideally placed in terms of time zones and so on and so forth. CEOs are perennially complaining about the lack of infrastructure. So what are your priorities in this?
Basically, I believe that if India has to grow at 8%, my state has to grow beyond 10%. And if I have to achieve that, two major things I would have to do. One is the infrastructure, the urban infrastructure, as well as the entire infrastructure. And secondly, I have to improve on ease to do business, because we already know that India has fared badly on that index. So I have started a lot of measures. So far as Mumbai infrastructure is concerned, for last 15 years, we did not create any infrastructure in Mumbai. We have been hearing so many, infrastructure initiatives, but none of them have started. So basically, in 15 days, I have cleared 2 metro routes, around 70 kilometers of metro. I have started working on the coastal road, because in Mumbai, you know that the Western Expressway is the carriageway of Mumbai, and it is most congested. And if we want to decongest Mumbai, we have to construct the coastal road. We are also planning to expedite the new Mumbai airport, because I think now Mumbai needs most is the new Mumbai airport. Moreover, Mumbai needs housing, because without housing, without affordable housing, and last 5-8 years, there have been so many initiatives just discussed, but nothing happened. So we want those initiatives to happen. We have already started, and I must tell you that in very little time, you will find many initiatives of affordable housing in MMR region. One more thing which I feel that Mumbai needs, because if we want to develop Mumbai as a financial capital, we need to create commercial spaces in Mumbai. Right. So there are a lot of initiatives which we have started, and I'm sure in months to come, you will see a lot of difference in Mumbai and Maharashtra.
Nirmala ji, if I can come to you, there's been, one of the sectors which has been responsible for the, for the optimism among investors is e-commerce. The valuation some of the e-commerce companies have got, and so on, and so they're also some of our award winners today. There is a certain amount of regulatory uncertainty in the e-commerce sector. One is, of course, the FDI in e-commerce. That's one issue. And the other is there are certain regulatory, questions facing the marketplace model, which many of the e-commerce companies have. Would you like to weigh in on these topics?
At the moment, we are looking at the way technology is taking over a lot of things, particularly in the retailing of goods. The way in which e-commerce is working out or showing its potential, we are carefully watching it. I wouldn't think there's anything more for me to say at this stage, because it is playing out very clearly, and it's the role of technology, which I think is very difficult for anyone to put a brake on. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to rush in to say either way, because our position on, say, multi-brand retail is very clear, but nothing more at this stage.
Okay. The Make in India campaign, which was launched on Independence Day, what has been the response so far?
From the day the launch happened, the response has been very good. I only wish that response is also starting to show on the ground, because if it starts to show on the ground, your growth figures will be much better, sharper than what we see now. And I think it is taking a bit of a time to play out, but the response has been absolutely encouraging.
If I can come to some of our CEOs, Mr. Benitez, foreign investors have forever been complaining of regulatory uncertainty, particularly when it comes to tax. So what are your thoughts on this issue?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would say the sentiment in the international business community on the country has changed dramatically. And I would give huge credit to the administration here on that change in sentiment. In today's world, when you look around the world, there's a lot of countries struggling. The so-called brick miracle is not going to happen. India does stand out really in a sweet spot today. And I think the policies of the last few months continues to build that confidence. Now, I think the strategy and the mission, Piyush, as you said, is very clear. The guts come to, as all of us as CEOs know, execution is the challenge. And I think we're at that stage now where the vision for Make in India is clear. We got to see the results starting on the ground. As it relates to ease of business, I think this is the core issue to unlock economic growth. I'm delighted to see the reforms agenda that's being talked about by the government, be it on labor, on land. I think tax predictability, Modi, to your point, I mean, this has been the bane of multinationals, right? Can we create a predictable, fair system? And again, Mr. Jaitley, I'm really pleased to hear your direction on this. I think creating a predictable environment here will make a very big difference in terms of investor sentiment. So ease of business, I think, is the key unlock. We have, in the last couple of years, we've invested about $3 billion in a big company in India. We manufacture in 90 locations. We employ about 14,000 people. But in this business, we need 250,000 approvals in 1 year, licenses and approvals in 1 year in United Spirits. And I would hope, with the direction we're taking here, that number comes down drastically. I mean, that will unleash economic activity, growth. It will cause us to invest. It will raise more employment. So I'm encouraged. I think infrastructure is a big element, not just physical, but also digital infrastructure, which I think will be a big enabler. Make in India is an enormous initiative, not just for the foreign investors, but very much for local industry. And Sachin, I wish entrepreneurs like you would go start making stuff too, because I think we need to encourage Make in India. And the final point I'd say, an industry which was touched on, I do think tourism has enormous potential and can attract a lot of foreign investment as well in terms of really opening up not just economic activity and creating jobs, but I think it's a tremendous source of soft power for India. And I think I'm really pleased that the government is making this a priority.
Sunil, you used to belong to a sector which was a poster child of liberalization once upon a time. Then it experienced coal sector-like problems, if one can put it that way. What are your thoughts to put on the sector, putting the sector back on track, or indeed on how you see the government, how the government has done in the past 6 months or so?
Well, I think the vision is very clear. What we have to see is some of the few important announcements that have been made by the government in the form of the vision to take this country forward. And I'm very pleased that Digital India, or having a broadband nation, is one of the items on the agenda which is really almost on the top of everything else. That gladdens my heart, because I personally believe, whether it's Flipkarts or Snapdeals and many others, everybody will need to ride on a digital highway, which has been created to some extent, but a lot more needs to be done. This government seems to be committed towards building a fantastic environment around the broadband and digital space, and that is very important. It's a hard-working government. It's a government which truly is committed to seeing change. I think we are all in the hall, rushing into the hall to see the movie. The trailers are fantastic. We are loving what we are seeing at the moment. And we are all waiting for the starting off the big magnum opus show that is about to begin. I feel good in my stomach every day when I wake up. This government is fast changing the way the industry operates. It's moving away from entitlements. It's fast killing discretions. And I think entrepreneurs like me, the younger ones who are entering, would love to have a playing field which is level for everyone. It doesn't favor those who are entrenched, gives an equal opportunity for millions of flowers to bloom. And I see this in the work of this government every day. I must add one more thing. India cannot be a nation dealing and trading with itself. It's a very important player in the global market. And I have to compliment this government. And I've seen this from a very close quarter of what happened in the recent WTO show. In fact, I went to both the Finance Minister and to Nirmala ji to say we may get isolated. I was really fearful, watching it very closely from my ICC seat, because we are part of the B20. And it seemed at one point in time that either the WTO will collapse or we'll be isolated in the whole process and the other countries will move forward. I have to compliment this government. They showed nerves of steel and standing on that grand stage in the world. And I tell you, it's very hard when the whole world, and this time, mind you, most of the emerging countries were also not behind us, then to stand alone and say, we want to protect our agriculture, we want to protect our procurement. I think you've done a fantastic job. I personally feel we are blessed to have a government like this.
Thank you. Mr. Devendra, how do you see this movie script unfolding, to take off from Sunil's analogy, in terms of what how the government has been doing in the last 6 years?
I think our government has displayed enormous amount of energy. And one of the big problems that we have accumulated is jobless growth in consumption.
Right.
And the vision of Make in India and making it boil down to manufacturing in India to create jobs and focus on tourism. I think that is the right direction to take. In a globalized world, capital and jobs will flow to those countries that show competitively superior competitiveness. We, in the past, developed a regulatory environment and procedures in a sort of closed economy and created things born out of suspicion of business. So as a result, things got created in silos. So instead of creating competitiveness, focus of every regulatory and procedural requirement was competitiveness, and to make that competitiveness a responsible competitiveness, what we perhaps did sometimes was that when we worked in a silo, say in the area of environment or in the area of labor, we sometimes compromised on competitiveness and focused only on the sub-key area. So as a result, there is sub-optimization of the end result, which end result should be really extreme, responsible competitiveness. So this is what we ought to be doing, and I am afraid what this government is attempting to do, it will take a while before it unfolds. This focus on manufacturing competitiveness and speeding up things has to take shape if we have to provide our people with jobs, much needed jobs to our youth.
Sachin, coming to Sachin, you are probably where Sunil was 20 years ago, or where someone like Mr. Narayan Murthy was 20 years ago. What do you think the government could do to enable a startup ecosystem, to enable entrepreneurship?
I think what we also need to do apart from the physical infrastructure that the government is focused on, right, is two things. One is the digital internet infrastructure. I believe that actually that India should be able to do much better than what we are doing today from an infrastructure point of view. We are very much behind in the infrastructure which is required. Spectrum, for example, broadband spectrum is not enough to cater to the growth or needs of the country, and from a policy point of view, IT and internet related policy point of view, we are behind. We need to take steps in that direction as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. May I thank the panelists for an engrossing discussion.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.